I guess we're going to get started. Thank you for coming. Sorry for the delay in getting started, but as you know, it's kind of our habit anyway, so you probably expected it. My name is Mark Gelora. I am part of the organizing committee for IGA San Francisco. Other members here are Thomas Grove on video camera, Alex Wilmer on digital SLR. I feel like I'm introducing a band. And Tim Longo helped us organize this. He works Crystal Dynamics, but he was not able to join us this evening, unfortunately. And we have various other members out and about. So we haven't met for a while, so I'm glad you all came and were able to find the location this evening. We're very happy to have the CEO of Telltale Games here today, Dan Connors, to talk to us about Episodic Gaming. You probably have seen or played, hopefully played, some of their previous work. I know that one of the more recent things they've been working on is Wallace and Gromit. They've also done Bone,
Monkey Island.
Monkey Island. Oh, yeah. Dan will tell you all about that. So I'll turn it over to Dan. We'll have a presentation, and then we'll have time for Q&A afterwards. And our normal habit is to wander over to Il Parata afterwards, which is I'll direct you there afterwards for beer and pizza. I want to say quickly before we get started, thanks to Dolby again for hosting us here, which we always really appreciate. And thanks to our new sponsor, Unity, who Thomas is now working for. And you probably saw the Unity banner. Unity makes a really interesting suite of, I would say it's a game engine and a game tool wrapped up in one. It's well priced and well designed for independent game developers. I'm sure Thomas can tell you more about that if you're curious. So, without further ado, I'll turn it over to Dan.
Thank you, Mark. I'm going to shut this cell phone off. I did it before. So I know this says GDC Europe, and this is not Europe, but I'll bring this presentation back to you guys. If you weren't there, if you were there, I'm sorry for any redundancies. I guess for my benefit, I'm open to talking about anything. This is just a PowerPoint, so. People here more interested in the development challenges, the design challenges, or the business challenges. I'm just going to take a quick survey, and I can cover all of it. So, who are the designers here? Who's interested in how do I design episodically? Okay, and how about the business people? All the suits, all right. And then where are the production folks? Good. Okay. So we've got a mixture of everybody. So I'll just do the general thing, and then you can ask me whatever you want, and hopefully I have an answer that works for you, and get it rolling. All right. So who's Telltale Games? We were founded in 2004. The company we came out of LucasArts. Kevin Bruner, the co-founder, myself, set up Telltale in 2004. We really wanted to build a company that was built to exploit the emergence of digital distribution. And we believed that one way to do that was to create episodic content. We really felt like digital distribution was going to present an opportunity to change the way games were played and the way the business worked. And we built a company. We were also in a big company at the time and had been really pushing to figure out a way to take advantage of digital distribution. But there was always this divide between the realities of getting retail product to market every quarter as necessary, every Christmas, and really focusing on an online business. So we knew that if we sat down and just put our brains together and figured out the online space, we'd have a real opportunity to take advantage of a paradigm shift in distribution and build the products that we wanted to build. And the second big piece of it was we wanted to keep doing story games, and we wanted to tell great stories. We really believed or we still believe that digital distribution is going to continue to diversify the audience, and not just digital distribution, but games and the games market in general is getting more diversified. So we wanted to build games that told stories well, feeling that was the most inclusive type of content you could build, aside from stuff that requires 6 digits and everything else. Since that time, we've grown to be 72 people. We've shipped. We do everything in house. The studio is about 42 on production. We do outsource. We do outsource animation and We do outsource animation, sound, and voice recording, and we have a lot of different partner companies that we work with, including StudioJory.org back there, who does all our voice recording in his studio. We support most of the stuff with the team internally. We're also a publisher, and we've built out a publishing business, and that's another about 10 people in the studio and 4 or 5 artists that work just on our website, our e-commerce, and all of that. So, it's a whole operation. We're currently on PC, Xbox, and WiiWare, and Wii, and PS2 and Mac are big targets for us. So what do? We go out and we cut license deals. We look at different franchises. Sometimes the franchise choices are about going out and finding a franchise that really resonates inside the gaming community, like Sam & Max or Monkey Island, and sometimes the franchise choices are about branching out and trying to get a wider audience in, like Wallace and Gromit. We also work in a traditional gig with Ubisoft on the CSI license. One thing that's in common for all of these franchises is that they have a strong reputation for great character development, great storytelling, and we've really built our brand around the success of these brands from a storytelling standpoint, etc. We've built out our own proprietary multi-platform tech. Everything we build we build on our own tools, and it goes out and ships across PC, Wii, and Xbox. Each time we add a new platform, the entire library comes over onto the platform. And that's been a critical piece of our strategy from the get-go, keeping the library fresh and moving it across new channels as they open it up. At retail, you've got kind of the get all 3 together and get them out for Christmas or whatnot. With connected consoles and other channels coming online, it's a little less predictable and a little more sporadic. So every time you have an opportunity to get to a new channel, it's like a new launch for your product, because you'll get placement and love and good positioning on the new channel as fresh content at that channel. And it's still emerging. So today it's WiiWare or PS2, PS3. Tomorrow it could be IPTV or iPhone, whatever. Each is a new launch and with a new audience and a new opportunity. In the 4 years we've been around, we've done 28 distinct episodes. And for anybody trying to build a business, the key to one of the keys to our success, and something I would say to everyone here, is it's really important, if you're not going to work with a big publisher to fund your development and pay your staff, is to get as much content into the marketplace as soon as you can to figure out what works and how the market works and hone those skills. That was certainly a philosophy for us, and we had a Texas Hold'em game out. Telltale Texas Hold'em, I think, was out before we even raised our first round of funding. We actually used it as a way to raise funding. And then Bone was the first. We had Bone out in the following September. So, and with Bone, actually with Telltale Texas Hold'em, I think we set it up. We wanted to, jump into the ocean and learn how to swim, and we couldn't even take credit cards from Europe on the first launch. So that was a little bit of a bug, but better to find it out real early in the process before we had 72 people in the studio waiting for paychecks. So that's Telltale. This is the way we see the world, from how distribution has shifted and how the industry is shifting. We see the retail world as one where the development cycle takes a long time. Anybody here that's worked at a big studio has probably been on the 2-year or 3-year cycle where things are pretty amorphous for a long time. We try to close a product a month, so it's always closing, and it's very tangible. The audience is continuing to broaden away from, I think in the probably from 2000 on, we got pretty nichified in a very specific audience, and that's starting to broaden out. I think the movement from disc to digital is consistent across all media. I don't know when it's going to happen. Games is a lot of data to push, but I think with Xbox and Sony and Nintendo really focused on making this work, you're going to continue to see to evolve. And you know, I think there's more opportunity with the widening audience to try different forms of entertainment, and not turn everything into a shooter or a driving game. A little bit about our development. When we invest in a franchise, we take about 5 to 10 months to get the franchise off the ground, and then we amortize every asset that we build in future episodes. So you have an initial investment to bring it to life. I don't think you can avoid that. But each ongoing episode to support going forward is a reduction in cost, especially if you can build your tools. I mean, at Telltale, our tools are built to take advantage of every asset we've ever built. So, you know, there are animations that were done in Texas Hold'em that are still in some of our games. So what are the risks? The monthly release date, until you've done it, it's difficult to explain, but if you've ever had to close a project, you can imagine doing that on a monthly basis. There's a lot of kind of a general sense of deadline looming all the time, which is a little bit of a shock to the system. It makes the studio a very, very busy, active place all the time. We don't drift off into, nobody really drifts off down a road where you're not sure what they're doing, because everything has to be done in little chunks of time instead of, you know, what's that guy been doing for 3 months? So I don't know. I think he was working on the dust for the landing of the spacecraft kind of thing. It's very focused, and it's very much like it's due next week. Is it there or isn't it? So it's getting people to think in that mode, and we don't. It's not like we're crunching every month, hours wise. It's like mentally we're always crunching, and the way we try to set it up is so that people are very focused on what they're doing, and they're not wasting any time and not wasting any effort when they're at work, so that they can have time away from work to have private lives. So pluses and minuses to everything. It can be stressful. Voice recording, we do 6 voice recordings or 5 voice recordings in any season that we do. So that's always that always has its way of taking time. The guys at BASD and Jory have really refined the process, but it's a challenge. Keeping the production in sync is another big thing. Not frying. With always being in this mode of closing things and always having 3 or 4 different parts of the production rolling. The talent, the artistic talent, and the programming talent all have their own sensibilities and way of seeing the world and feelings and whatnot, and it can be frazzling. Some people really like to focus on one thing and close it out, so we need to work on that. And then the channel, it's still not as much of a this is how it works like the retail channel is. It's very different. Microsoft's still figuring it out, Nintendo's still figuring it out, and Sony's still figuring it out. They're getting better and better every day, but things change, and they have their own processes, and they're refining them as they go, just like everyone in development is. So here's a little case study about what we did with Monkey Island and what we did with Strong Bad. With Monkey Island, we had Monkey Island is more of a soap opera. It has great characters who have ongoing stories. So we tell the stories through the characters. It's able to have cliffhangers. It's able to have relationships develop over time. We're able to do a lot of things with it. And we've really built the Monkey franchise from the ground up to be one episode leads into the next, leads into the next, leads into the next, which was different than with Sam and Max or even Strong Bad, where we wanted to really build out standalone products so that anybody could jump in at any time. And what we found was, selling people on a new idea, on a new episode, a fresh episode every month is pretty darn hard. The marketing effort and the publishing effort is serious. Getting them engaged and keeping them engaged in something where everything's connected. We're really pushing that with Monkey Island, and so far it seems to be paying off. So, how have we changed? Telltale definitely, at this point, we have to think like a publisher. We're a digital publisher. We need to take on Telltale takes on the risk of paying the license holder and funding the development. When you do that, you're the first person to get a check at the end of the day, and then you pay everybody else. That's a good position to be in. More cash that comes to you, the better. We dealing with each distributor and setting up relationships with each distributor. You need to have people focused on making sure that happens. It doesn't happen by itself. They'll give you what they give everybody else, but after that, you got to really push to get what you want in the channel, to get yourself positioned correctly, to get a press release, co-press release written. You need to develop relationships with every distribution partner in order to get where you need to be on the deck or wherever else. Marketing, I think I come out of development. I'm sure a lot of people in this room come out of development, and marketing is probably the biggest black art for most of us, and why does it work, and how does it work, and what do you do, and why do you spend 10% of whatever you think it's going to make if you're supposed to spend marketing in order to make a certain amount of money. It's an interesting part of the business, and one that if you want to build a business and you want to succeed, you have to take very seriously, and you have to really get engaged with your audience and figure out what they want and what the expectation is. And I think finally the biggest thing for us, especially as a licensing company, is doing the research behind our licenses to make sure we know what the potential of the license is from a how much revenue can it generate, what's the audience, what's the expectation of the audience, do they like games? You say Monkey Island game, and every person you speak to knows what you're talking about. You say Wallace and Gromit game, and it's not exactly the same response from those individuals. So making licensing choices and then understanding the ramifications of those for your business is a big part of it. And get serious about the business plan. I think when we first started, there was a lot of 200,000 visits, 10% conversion, 20,000 units times 20, 400,000, 5 months, 2 million. Okay, let's go. What's the budget? We've moved away from that. So really sitting down and laying out all the cost and all the marketing it's going to take and what the real conversion rate is. And don't believe any conversion rate that anybody tells you. It's just a made-up number. Actually, I have heard it is said that 82% of statistics are made up on the spot. So this is one of them. Conversion rate. And how's the money going to flow? What are you laying out? When are you collecting? Who are you paying? When are you paying? What does 15% mean? Is it 15% off of gross? Is it 15% off of net? How's net calculated? Is it net received? Is it net off of the price point? Is it a wholesale price point? Know it. Because the size of your checks will be determined based on how well you understand those terms and those terminologies in any deal structure. And then, hey, if it hits big, how do you make sure that you're in a place to maximize it? It's only going to roll for so long, and then people are going to forget you for Beatles Rock Band. And you got to maximize it while you've got it. Can you localize? Can you put things in place to get to other channels quickly? How do you take advantage of your success? So these are how publishers are successful. So you need to think about it if you're going to build your own independent publishing business, which is one way to do it. From an online perspective, you also have to think like an online business. Telltale has a website. We do about 35% of our business from TelltaleGames.com. The margin at TelltaleGames.com is by far the best for us. Everybody else, you have a revenue share to be there, and they're taking a big chunk for giving you their audience. So how do you build an audience to sell to, and how do you communicate with them? how do you build a site? So, you know, the metrics. Metrics are another thing where, you know, there's so many. You get in there and you start looking at them, and it's like jumping down the I guess they call it the rabbit hole or something like that. You see something, go, oh, that's really interesting. We got 5,500 hits from Norway yesterday. I wonder what site it was. Oh, it was this site. And, you know, you can get distracted very easily for any metric. So the idea of what your dashboard is and why it's important and what it means to your business and what you're looking at and the story it tells, it's very important that you craft that. So you're building an online business. You know, how do you treat your customers? What's the tone of your site? How do you support your forums? How do you do all of this stuff? Is you know, it's something at Telltale we've paid a lot of attention to and have been able to build a successful site and use the franchises and partners and Yahoo and demos and Games Planet and Big Fish in our own products to always be driving people back to Telltale to have a relationship with us. Because if you can have a customer base, a group of players that really like what you're doing, you can work with them, and then also in an episodic sense, you can have this ongoing conversation with them for 6 months. Once they're there, they can give you feedback. You can respond to the feedback. The product can continue to grow. And then thinking about the community. You know, how do you go out and build a community? How do you take advantage? And you know, I know the topic of this is episodic, so how do you take advantage of the fact that you've got a franchise that's live? With Monkey Island, we did a treasure hunting game that was free. It was an app that we sent out, and it had little elements of maps. You get a map from a partner site or from an affiliate site, and you go bring that map back into the game, follow the map, dig up a treasure. It could be a coupon or an avatar, and then you'd be able to pull them up. And you know, for us, things like the coupon, where people go in and dig up a coupon, they'd be pretty psyched that they could get $10 off, and they'd come back and buy a product from us. So it was very much, you know, how are we going to take advantage of the fact that there's this way to communicate with people outside of the game, and a lot of different online places support it. The feedback loop with the community has been something that we've used as well. I think you know, one thing I've been realizing as we do this, it's such a new thing, is that we'll be building the game, and we'll be building the 5th episode or the 4th episode, and the 2nd episode will be out, and the forums will be going raging. You know, right now they're raging on Monkey Island about there being too many bad sex jokes in the game, or corny sex jokes, or bad puns, or whatever. You know, and I think right now everybody's really sensitive to it. So everything that can be implied as a sexual reference or has sexual innuendo in it, everyone's kind of like, you know, maybe that's too much. And then of course they say, no, it's not enough, and do whatever they want. But you know, there's definitely an impact of the product's live. People are responding to it. The development team's live. There's a synergy. People are up talking there, and you know, it's a really good involvement. It's almost like creating something live, like a live TV show or live music or something. It's a really cool phenomenon. It's something I didn't expect, and in that loop between the community and the game builders drives the creation of the final product. And the final product wouldn't be what it was without the engagement of the community. And you know, you let your employees, we let the people who work for us roam the forums and say whatever they want, and you know, it's a little crazy, but we're still in that stage. You know, I'm sure we'll get a little bit more tight about it when we're a big, huge online publisher. But you know, right now it's important to build a community and get people together, and you know, it's sometimes it burns us, but in a lot of ways the people appreciate it, and it creates that feedback. And of course, figuring out ways to keep people there, to come back every month, and to feel engaged. Finally, there's still retail. So there's still, when you've got you've built your online business, not taking advantage of the retail component, not taking advantage of the fact that you've got a piece of content that can be sold through the retail channel and can reach a whole new branch of customers. You know, cannibalization versus incremental increase in revenues. I don't know. I wouldn't make a big statement on that either way. But I think you have to be in stores in order to get in front of as many people as you want to. You might not be able to get a premium price point. You might not be able to get a premium deal, but it's a good venue, and there's a lot of foot traffic through stores and a different purchasing behavior, and a lot of people that still feel comfortable in stores. So at Telltale, what we do is we build out the seasons, and then we make the seasons available as DVDs, looking at like The Sopranos or True Blood or something like that. So that's what I've got. But I'm certainly open to hearing people's questions, and thanks Dolby, and thanks Mark for having me down here. And yeah. Right here first.
I'm John with Wolfire Games, and we're kind of in the PC Mac Linux space. We just started up, and we're brand new, but I'm sort of tasked with doing the PR and marketing. We're basically exploiting what you said there about Twitter, Facebook, and all that stuff, because it's free. We haven't dived into much of the actual marketing stuff. And one of the benefits you have with IP is you find an awesome IP, and it's got some recognition already. So if you skin a website, maybe that can work for you. But do you have any advice for like the little fish in terms of with a PC game trying to is there a marketing opportunity that works there that you should actually pay for?
For an original property?
Yeah.
I'd go with the first thing I said, which is try to get something out as soon as you can and see kind of what it generates and what kind of traction it gets. Right now, with marketing, you run the real worry of driving people to something that isn't going to convert.
Yeah.
You know, you don't want the Teflon landing site. You know, you want to make sure everything's pretty honed before you throw real money behind it. And from an original property standpoint, it's a lot of money to buy traffic.
And they usually don't let you experiment with small amounts. It's usually give us, you know, 5K, 10K, and then you can skim the site and see what happens. But for us, it's kind of a bigger deal to take that risk on a site like that.
Yeah, and 5K, 10K would be a small amount.
Yeah.
You know, to sustain a presence, to get even, you know, you need a critical mass to make it work. So a couple 100,000 for paid marketing. So you really need to think of what you're really. How big's your company?
We're just 5 guys, real small. But
so you need to figure out right now who your customers are. Figure out if there's enough of them there to pay for your game to keep you guys going and fed.
Yep. And
get them the game as quick as you can, and then learn from them. And that would be my. I wouldn't. $5 grand isn't gonna. $5 grand's gonna be gone like that. You're gonna see a blip in your analytics.
Yep.
And then it's gonna be gone. And then the second piece would be timing. Just whatever you do, spend your money when you're doing your most activity on Twitter, your most activity on Facebook, when you're newest, when you're freshest, and then you'll maximize every dollar that you spend.
Thanks.
Who had someone over here raising?
I came a little late. How many people?
Telltale 72 people. Yeah.
From like a production standpoint, do you guys take advantage of like agile development or waterfall development? And if you do, what are some of the benefits and disadvantages with your sort of business model that you see sort of implementing, or how do you change the process to suit you guys? If you can say.
Yeah, I don't know, man. You know, I'm old school, so I don't know any of that stuff. We used to just have meetings, you know, and get everybody together and say, "What are you doing? What are you doing?" So I think that's at Scrum. But we've really, I mean, the guys. I wish the production team was here, because I don't mean to be flippant, because they certainly have a process. We've really, every game we do shares the same template. So every time out, the template gets refined. You know, the last one that we did, so with Monkey, there was like, we started in February and needed to launch in July. So the animation, we couldn't build up the animation bank quick enough to keep everything queued up correctly. And, you know, we just had to kind of work with the resourcing to get the animations in place. But everything for us is, are the assets in place on the day that the next phase of the product needs them? And if they're not, how are we going to get them in place on the day that the next phase needs them? Because if that phase slips, you know, what happens? So for us, it's really about transparency. It's 3 months and 14 people. You know, you can really have a real good vision of where everything is. It's all running, it's all happening, and it just comes together in a very consistent way. So I don't know, you know, how that relates to production methods at larger houses, but for us, that's the way we do it. Okay. Thanks. Yeah.
Hi. Have you guys experimented with different release schedules? So you're saying you're basically releasing one game every month now. I'm not sure whether that is within one franchise or cross franchises, but let's say you would have no constraints on the amount of like resources you have. You could release a new episode every 2 weeks or even every week, right? Do you have data that you could share that would say, well, that would increase our the likelihood of people continuing to see the series? Because to me, like just as a customer, a month between episodes still. I mean, I understand why right now will probably not be feasible to have a higher throughput, but a month between the seasons, between the episodes, still sounds pretty long, right?
Yeah, yeah. And I hear you. It's, you know, it's a month for any multitude of reasons that got us to this point. Yeah. You know, I personally had wished when Monkey Island came out, because the hooks were, it felt like the hooks were so good, and even I wanted to figure it out. You know, still being built. I really was wishing it could have been like it started in July and then ended in September on Labor Day, and then this summer would have been the summer that you played Monkey Island, and you got it every couple of weeks, and you could come. You're home from school, and it just really worked for the player. Unfortunately, it just wasn't possible for us on this one. But I'd say there's definitely some thought to be done on that and figured out. You know, from a numbers standpoint, I don't really have anything to compare it to because we haven't pulled it in under a month yet. We've had a couple that were 2 months out, and we have, you know, our library's been distributed in multiple ways, but there's nothing definitive yet.
But are you guys, like, is your production or your development team actively constantly looking at methods to basically compress that development cycle even further, or are you basically saying, well, a month is kind of what we settled on, and this is what we're okay with?
I think we would take the approach at this point, instead of continuing to try to optimize that part, I think we would take the approach of waiting longer and queuing up. Okay. Yeah. And then you can do whatever you want. But if you need to be, you know, it's all about cash flow. Okay. If you can wait.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a question. I noticed you talked earlier that you don't do the audio in-house.
Mm-hmm.
Is that correct? And I noticed it was whited out on one of your PowerPoint pages earlier. Why did you decide not to do the audio in-house?
Because the people that we work with, we've had a long relationship with, and they had their own business going, and we really wanted to work with them. And you know, at the time, I think when we first started, we were doing maybe 2 franchises a year, and sound had a different rhythm than regular development. I don't know that when we first started, if the rhythm for sound and music production would have warranted dedicated full-time people. That's certainly changed at Telltale, and we're continuing to work on that with our partners. But I think it's more of a heritage thing than anything else, and it's something that we're still working on. Keith, you can go first, and then you, and then you're last because you already went once.
My question is about your demographics. You said you're trying to breach different categories by picking these different franchises. Have you seen much crossover, like someone doing Strong Bad to pick up Monkey Island might not have played that kind of game before? Or
yeah, I think there's
the way around. I mean, what sort of like groups have you actually touched on, and how do they talk to each other, or how do they relate to each other?
It's harder to track like the new, and we do track as one of the important metrics for us is like have people purchase before one of our other franchises and what's their purchasing habits. But the maturity of that part of our business didn't really hit until probably Strong Bad. So that data is fresher and just starting. It's real easy to see the people that are really into what we do because they're on the forums and they're telling us what they hate and telling us what they love and are very engaged, and it seems to be a steady group of people. And when we reach out on our mailing list, kind of a similar number that continues to grow always seems to respond. So I'd say there's probably about 20-25% of our audience that is picking up everything we're doing. And 75% that is doing some mixing mastering of product, but it's just really dependent. And then I think some people come in just for specific franchises. But every time our mailing list grows, with every new franchise our mailing list grows, and every time we launch our mailing list conversion number stays the same. So it seems like we're kind of converting the same amount of new people to kind of stay in and purchase, somewhere in the 20-25% range.
Well, thanks.
If that's helpful, yeah. Who did I say was next?
Yeah. So you had DRM on one of your slides. I'm curious from a business standpoint how much privacy or piracy concerns you, how much effort you actually put into DRM, especially compared against the nature of digital goods, and that can be an infinite resource. I mean, what's kind of your take on piracy and how far you go to prevent it, or do you at all? Is it more important to grow the audience than to prevent that sort of activity?
That's a tough one, I mean, that's all good, all valid things that we think about. I think the solution is to build something where it doesn't make sense to pirate your stuff, because the online portion of the experience is so interesting that you don't want a pirated copy because you want to participate, or you want us to manage your system or something. So I think what Steam does. Steam provides a service that is more interesting than pirating the games. You just as soon buy it there. I think we always put some level of DRM on there just to kind of have that gut check with people. Say, well, this isn't just something that you can just download from anywhere for free. Can you pay? Or hey, would you like to pay us? Or you can download it. Or hey, you should pay us. So a little bit of DRM kind of establishes that, yeah, I'm not going to go to Pirate Bay. I don't need to see, boobies flashing on my screen and all this crazy, wacky stuff that goes on there, I'm just going to come here and pay whatever, this fee. And so those places are kind of seedy, and it's kind of a gnarly place to be. So, I think we probably keep about 50% of the purchases, and 50% of the people go outside. Now there's a total opportunity to connect with them and sell their eyeballs off. But you got to be pretty savvy from a biz dev side to go out and make that deal with whomever, maybe Mountain Dew or Rockstar drinks or whatever, might want those eyeballs. And that would be a crafty way to your point, hey, I just want to grow my audience, man. Everybody take it, whatever. Also, I got 1 million people. Yeah, and then if you can monetize them some other way by flashing something into your app or whatever, that would be very savvy.
And your price point also makes it less appetizing to pirates too. It's usually $10 an episode or thereabouts, right?
Yeah, I mean there's part of the casual, keeping it casual. I mean, right now we're really selling season subscriptions, but it is only one episode at a time. Okay.
First, do you do the writing in-house? So the writing for that?
It varies from franchise to franchise. In some relationships, we'll do everything. In other relationships, we'll write like a skeleton thing and then send it over to the license holder. Like the Chapmans from Strong Bad. They like to write. They're the writers, and he's all the voice talent. He's an awesome, talented guy. So we would write, and then would send it over, and they'd say, oh, Homestar would never say that, and change up that kind of stuff. And then Matt would sit down and start reading the script and just make stuff up as he went. And that was super cool because we really caught the essence of the franchise. And the guys would be a little bummed because it was more work on the back end to reintegrate it. Wallace and Gromit, it was a lot of, we would write it and then we'd send it. We paid a guy over in the UK to rewrite the vernacular to get it local. Sam and Max, we write most of it. Steve just looks at it and says, "Awesome, that's hilarious. Could you make it a little weirder?" And Monkey's been mostly us, which is Dave Grossman and Mike Stemley and a lot of original writers. And,
My second question was, have you done it or thought about doing any sort of movie tie-in, so like as a lead up to the movie or concurrent with movie franchise that is coming out?
Yeah, movies are interesting licensing choices because they tend to be white hot, and we tend to run for 6 months. And Telltale's always we've always had the CSI thing because television has been more of we've worked with Ubi on really figuring out what the television license needs for support and from an audience standpoint. Movies we've kind of shied away from just because they're either so huge, they're like can't miss. Hey, I'm going to be on Burger King with Spider-Man and et cetera, and that's just awesome. Or if you can't get that, well, is it going to hit big, or is it going to, what if I looked and said, oh, Jack Black's in Nacho Libre, I want to do that. Is that going to move? How's that going to work as a marketing tool for the product? Or is the content so interesting that the design team has to have it? So we kind of shy away from movies in that respect, and I hate to diss Nacho Libre. And then you're talking about leading up to a film as well, which I've always wanted to do. There's two things that I think are really interesting. One is taking a franchise and kind of incubating it into something that someone would want to make a movie out of. And then there's, hey, this movie's coming out in May. Let's make part of the marketing to do a lead-up series into the film. I think on that level, maybe if we were EA, it would be different. There's $120 million riding on the success of the film, and the marketing people have a lot of control over the messaging that goes out. I think it would be pretty overbearing to try to do something to be part of a marketing build-up to a film, because anything you would do would put the marketing campaign and the film image at risk. My interpretation from what somebody said to me once, so that's why that's the way I see it right now. I think he was going to... Yeah.
So I think a little bit tied into that from the standpoint of licensing, since you do a lot of things that are licensed. I'm just wondering what your relationship is with your licensed partners as you're going through the development process, creating the story and actually executing it visually, animations and so forth. Do you have a kind of relationship where it's fairly hands-off because they just kind of understand that you get it, or they're not very controlling, or are they controlling and you've just developed a very simpatico kind of relationship to be able to keep things on track? Just wondering if you could talk more about that, about how do you meet that consistent schedule and still have some vetting rights, or don't you? How does that work with your licensing partners?
It's really hard. It's really hard because it's never the same. I mean, everybody's different, right? In some cases it's a large entity. In other cases it's two guys in a garage. And in some cases it's someone that has played 100 games and loves games and games is their business. And in other cases it's someone that's never done interactive in their life before. So Telltale's got a pretty good pedigree from a license standpoint. A lot of people at the studio have Star Wars and Indiana Jones, and then we're working with CSI as well. So those are good names to make people feel comfortable that, hey, if you're okay with those licenses, you should be okay with ours. But creative control is a huge issue, and just because the entity, whatever entity you're dealing with, may have the rights and may want to sell you the rights, it doesn't mean the creative person behind the franchise is on the same page as them, and you may have a relationship with them. So I would say it's one of the biggest risks. It's one of the biggest risks. It's one of the biggest contract points. What are the approvals? What approvals are allowed? You know, how many days do you have to approve? If you don't approve it after 10 days, is it unapproved or is it approved? It's one of the downsides of working with licenses, for sure. That being said, with the right partner, it's totally smooth and cool. And as time goes on and you do a good job, it stops being a worry. But the first one's a pain. First one's a pain with very rare exceptions.
It seems like you have a license thing down, so do you have any future plans for like original IP?
Yeah, you know, it kind of goes back to the very first question that he asked: how do you get an IP, original IP, out there, and you know, how do you promote it and get it the exposure it needs? And if you don't have a publisher backing it and giving it the treatment of, you know, buying the banner at E3 or, you know, whatever, how do you do it? You know, do you make something super cool that people play and say, wow, this is the best experience ever, like World of Goo or something like that? That's kind of lightning in a bottle-ish. I think it's great. Everyone should try it if you can. But it's you know, that's kind of very hard to, you know, I wouldn't bank on it. So our strategy is to build a brand first, get a distribution channel that works, get marketing partnerships that we understand, have it all refined, get the talent at the studio, you know, well integrated into the way we do things, and then come out with the original property as we continue to innovate on what we're doing from a gameplay mechanics standpoint, from a storytelling standpoint, and just get the formula all together. I mean, one thing that we do, I mean, in all the projects that we lead, one thing that people really don't think about is a licensed franchise gives you the first 6 or 7 months of your production. You know, you open a comic book and you've got every piece of concept art you need to build the characters. And that, you know, if you're small, that costs money. And that takes time and everything else. And if you're trying to build a world, I need my best guy thinking about, you know, what type of chairs do they have in this village? Well, you know, and they come back from the library with a book of chairs, and this is the Bavarian model, and would they do Bavarian? And you know, those are, at this point in our time, we're not solving that problem. We'd love to, you know, at some point we'd love to do it, but right now we don't, the opportunity's not right. You had a question earlier, did you get it?
Yeah, I was just going to ask one more. You kind of touched on this already, but with your episodic model, you have the opportunity to iterate off fan feedback, and it's kind of what you probably want to do, because you don't want to just sell them on the first episode, you want to keep them around through all the episodes. And I was wondering, what are the best mechanics for you to understand who your consumers are and how to keep them happy? And you mentioned the forums, are those useful? I guess sales data is probably the most useful, but in addition to that, do you survey your clientele, or what kind of mechanisms do you use to do that and keep them happy and keep them around?
Forums are good. We do focus groups. We bring people into play during development. We've done surveys. We're really interested in integrating stuff into the product that tells us, that the users can just tell us by their play experience. Did they make it to this part of the game? Did they get stuck there? That type of stuff.
Keep data of what they're doing, because they have to play online, right? So. Yeah,
and we don't necessarily. That's just something we're looking at right now.
Sure.
But we really feel like that could be something where there's a really good opportunity to improve the play experience, even if we could just set it up and have 10 people in and have them play like that and just watch your experience, or have our test group. Every blind tester goes through that. So, you know, good QA group, sending it through the whole company. So that would be, I would say, you know, that's where I'd start.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
So you said you were looking at splitting PS2. Were you looking at splitting PS3, or?
I meant to say the PS3.
Okay. And
PS2 would be nice too.
what about the portable iPhone
Yeah, you know, it's all part of the plan. I think that iPhone is certainly the thing that everyone's looking at right now, and it seems to me like a kind of noisy marketplace with low price points. So it might be low barrier to entry right now because they've built a great device and they have a great install base. Taking advantage of it, you know, monetizing a 99-cent product, it's a lot of units, depending on, you know, what your expectation is from it or what you need from it to support the business. You know, and I know that Monkey Island was up there. The LucasArts version of Monkey Island was up on iPhone. I believe it was at $7.99. It was in the top 10 for a good amount of time. So it certainly seems like there's an opportunity for certain types of content and the type of content we do. So we're still figuring out, okay, how does it work? How do you get your product up the deck? How do you stay in the top 10? What do the economics look like? What's the business there really? How much can you make? Yeah, it's the capitalist answer. And of course the creative opportunities as well. I don't know how to film that. Yeah.
Wondering if you can talk a little bit about the demographics between the different platforms, and are you finding that it's kind of similar, that each platform just has a different share or a different percentage of the user base that gravitates towards your type of product, or is there really kind of differences between the platforms in terms of the type of content of your studio, of Telltale, that people want to produce, and do you have to kind of in some ways kind of tweak things, or is everything really pretty much the same across the board?
Oh, it's definitely not the same. It's definitely not the same. You know, PC has been around for a long time, and for some of the games that we do, they were originally PC games, and there's a lot of there's a real easy way to go out and access those fan groups, and you can come up with a real organic plan. You know, to kind of your issue of, okay, how do I get this done? The PC is going to be the place where you can go out and say, people on this website are going to like what I do, and I'm going to let them know about me. And you don't necessarily have that opportunity on the other platforms. You don't have any real control over the audience. But the other platforms are the gamer audiences, so people that are coming there are interested in games. And some of the obviously the Xbox audience is the demographics are pretty, you know, I would say that it's pretty accurate description of what you think an Xbox gamer is probably accurate. And it's interesting because you know, we as the casual space, but WiiWare is a little more complicated than the others to get engaged in. It's wireless and it involves a router and everything, so it has this interesting dynamic between it. I don't know about PS3 or iPhone, but I would assume it's the same thing. There's a type of gamer that games on that platform, and your tool for reaching that gamer and your ability to talk to that gamer is going to vary from platform to platform. And as an independent, the PC is going to give you the best opportunity to talk to the most people, but you're going to need to build an infrastructure to do that. It doesn't happen by accident. So that would be my take. Anyone else, or is it pizza time? I would come get pizza, but my Uncle Bob is in town. I told him I'd pick him up at the San Rafael Farmers Market. Yeah.
I've got one more random one. We're making a Ninja Rabbit fighting game. It's actually going to have some dogs too. How much would it cost, I don't know if you can even tell me this, to put the likeness of Sam and Max in as combatants?
How much you got?
Well, you know, I'm complaining about.
I've heard your budgets.
Yeah.
You email me and we can talk about it.
Parody is free.
Parody
is free.
Yeah.
Thanks, Keith. my VP of Biz Dev.
Well, I make products for $30,000, so you know.
Anyone else? Sam Max's image. Cool. All right.
Thanks, Dan.